So as the boy is sitting down, he's maybe regretting some of his decisions. He feels a bit ashamed. And he's considering here, giving up. He wants to return to the girl with the raven hair. And this is why the old man shows up. He's going to compel him further along the journey, give him advice and hope. But as he's thinking about the girl, and he's holding his book, he's considering telling her stories from the book. Most of them he had read in books, but he would tell them as if they were from his personal experience. She would never know the difference because she didn't even know how to read. So he plans on lying to the girl in order to impress her. So he's not being a very considerate person here. He's very much willing to engage in deceit to try to make himself look better, to try to boost his own image. Has all the hallmarks of him feeling better than her. He hasn't experienced here the full interconnectedness of things. He's very much bitter of things. He's concerned with status. It's also interesting to contrast how the boy is ready and willing to use trickery to win over the girl with the raven hair, but then he's sad and disheartened and discouraged when he feels that the palm reader has tricked him. And I want to reemphasize, I think some of the boy's anger and resentment, and I would also say prejudice, we saw him prejudiced against the palm reader and a whole group of people. And I think that comes from him having not experienced all this interconnectedness of things. He thinks everybody's so different that there's no possible way they could share this unique personal language, that he could get along with everyone. He doesn't think that yet. He doesn't know anything about it. And ultimately, he needs to embark and undergo his journey in order to get over his fear. His fear is what's making him irrationally afraid. We become better when we're doing the things that we personally love and enjoy to do. Back to the old man, though. The old man is speaking with him, and the boy is sort of irritated, right? He's getting irritable. He doesn't want to talk to him because he's all worried that people say strange things, the boy thought. Sometimes it's better to be with sheep who don't say anything, and better still to be alone with one's books. They tell their incredible stories at a time when you want to hear them. But when you're talking to people, they say some things that are so strange that you don't know how to continue the conversation. And up until this point, the boy continuously reads books. Like, he is able to read. This is one thing that had impressed the girl with the raven hair. When the old man sits down, the boy puts the book down, and this will become a recurring theme. As the boy progresses along his journey, he no longer needs to read. In some way, the theme is that he's writing his own adventure. So the boy is very much getting dispirited. He's losing his desire to continue this journey. The old man is talking about personal destinies. And the boy asks, what's the world's greatest lie? And what are you rambling on about? It's this, that at a certain point in our lives, we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate. That's the world's greatest lie. That's never happened to me, the boy said. They wanted me to be a priest, but I decided to become a shepherd. I think we can infer here that the boy thinks that he's so different just because of that one thing. And he's right in the context of the story. He did act different. He did break with this idea that what's happening to him must be fate. But you still get the sense, based on how petty he can be at times, that he just thinks he's so special because of this. When in all reality, this is nothing but overconfidence, because he's just begun to embark on this journey. And in another part of this conversation, the old man tells him that he's from Salem. The boy didn't know where Salem was, but he didn't want to ask, fearing that he would appear ignorant. He has sort of this inferiority complex. Hence, the reason he wanted to lie to the girl earlier. The old man was probably a gypsy too. And here the old man proves that he's got supernatural powers. And this is meant to be a concrete way, I think, to keep the boy going. The old man, or the king, tells him. But as time passes, mysterious force begins to convince them that it'll be impossible for them to realize their destiny. It's a force that appears to be negative, but actually shows you how to realize your destiny. And the old man tells him, you've succeeded in figuring out and determining what your destiny is. So that's all he's accomplished so far. He's at the very, very beginning. The king makes a conversation about bakers being more important than shepherds. The boy felt a pang in his heart, thinking about the merchant's daughter. There was surely a baker in her town. And here the old man makes a good point. In the long run, what people think about shepherds and bakers becomes more important for them than their own destinies. This is status, this abandonment of your own ideas just to fall in line with what society wants. And just to reiterate, one of the main core themes of the book is that there will be someone and something perfect, perfectly tailored to him once he finds the right path, once he completes that journey. The king wants the boy to give him 1/10 of his flock. Then the boy asks him, what about 1/10 of my treasure, my future treasure? Exactly like the palm reader asked for. The old man looked disappointed. You start out by promising what you don't even have yet. You'll lose your desire to work towards getting it. The boy told him that he had already promised to give 1/10 of his treasure to the gypsy. Gypsies are experts at getting people to do that, sighed the old man. Promising something you don't have stifles your destiny. And it makes sense because you don't have anything, you haven't earned anything. And you know now when you get it, you're going to owe somebody else something. The king here is right. It stifles the desire. And that's exactly what happened with the boy. He was about to give up. He just went wandering around the city sulking. So the king was right. You know, the palm reader actually impeded the boy's destiny at that moment. And that's why he was considering giving up. The boy was giving up because he was promising things he didn't have, and it irritated him further. The king is asked for 1/10 of his something tangible, something real. Then he leaves. The boy began to read his book, but he was no longer able to concentrate. Once again, this recurring theme of as the boy makes his own narrative, he foregoes the narrative in books. So as the boy's wandering around, he's waiting for the next day because he has to make a decision, a huge decision. Does he give this old man, the king, 1/10 of his flock? And there's some scenes in there where we see he's becoming really attached to his sheep. He starts to consider his sheep. He remembers the good moments, and he's considering forsaking his dream. And this idea of the levanter, the wind, picks up. And I think this represents his increased intensity of thought, trying to make this difficult decision. But this is also the same wind, the levanter, which we're told carried the Moors to new land. So it's an adventurous wind. He had to choose between something he had become accustomed to and something he wanted to have. And the boy's thinking about the life that he's giving up. There was also the merchant's daughter, but she wasn't important as his flock because she didn't depend on him. Maybe she didn't even remember him. He was sure it made no difference to her on which day he appeared. For her, every day was the same, and when each day is the same as the next, it's because people failed to recognize the good things that happen in their lives every day that the sun rises. I think he's actually being rude here. I think this is another example of his insecurity. He says it was made no difference on which day he appeared. For her, every day was the same. Meeting him was new for the girl with the raven hair. So if every day for her is the same, that would have made a huge impression on her life. But as he's sitting there thinking, brooding, considering his life, what he's about to give up, he sees the baker and his girlfriend. And I think this represents Santiago and the girl with the raven hair. Clear display of something he's giving up. So the old man gives him 2 stones, and he charges him for the sheep for giving him advice. But I had to insist on the payment of sheep because I helped you make your decision. Then the old man tells him a parable, and it starts with a young man trying to find the secret to happiness. So he goes to this estate and he meets the wise man. And the wise man is in a haste. He fills a spoon with oil and says, don't spill this oil. Wander around for a bit. And when the boy returns, no oil is spilled. And The wise man asks, did you see all this interesting stuff, these relics, these cool things that I had? And the boy's like, no, I didn't see any of that. I was trying to keep the oil balance the whole time. I was looking down the whole time. So they do the experiment one more time. This time the boy runs around with reckless abandon and he sees everything. But when he returns to the wise man, all the oil has been spilled from the spoon. And the wise man says, the secret of happiness is to see all the marvels of the world and never to forget the drops of oil on the spoon. The boy immediately understands it. A shepherd may like to travel, but he should never forget about his sheep. And I think there's a few ways to think about this. Right? The sheep helped to shape the boy, so he doesn't need to forget about him because he's always going to carry along that part of him into the future. Enjoy the world, but don't lose yourself along the way. The old man insisted on 6 sheep, or 1/10 of the flock, a sacrifice, if you will, to continue the journey because it'll instill a desire to go forward. Because he knows if the boy gives up something, he knows he's lost something, and it'll make him really desperate to finish the journey. That's the goal. But let's imagine somewhere along the way, the boy is like, I don't care about my sheep anymore. Then the sacrifice won't make the same impact. If he gives up the self that cared about the sheep, what sacrifice did he make? It would just mean that he gave up something he didn't care about. So there's no sacrifice. So what's to compel him to finish this journey after that?